So thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Really good to see so many of you tonight. This is our first campaign update of 2024, and I have to say it's a bit of a strange one for us because it's our first campaign update, I think, in a very long time where we haven't had Sam as part of the team. You may have seen our email at the end of 2023 where Sam has moved on to our campaign organizer. Sam has moved on to other things and gone to work for the party herself, which is really exciting, and we're keeping in touch with him. But an unusual meeting for us anyway. I do, however, have Alex definitely on the line. Wave hello, Alex. He's going to be talking to us about the work he's doing with PPCs and some of the work you can all be doing to support that. And I think we have Laura on the line somewhere. Yep, she is waving. You'll hear from her too if you can't see her on the screen. And Caroline is not going to be joining us tonight. Caroline, who looks after her trade union work, she couldn't make it, but she's very much here in spirit. What we're going to do is we're going to give a bit of an update on campaign activity this year. This obviously being a general election year and it being a slightly different focus, slightly different kind of emphasis from previous years. And then and really the main activity of this meeting is going to be talking about some of the canvassing activity we're doing and kind of the rationale behind the way we're doing it, and where we're focused in particular, looking at some of our really ardent ally PPCs, prospective candidates who are most vocally pro-PR, seeing where they are and working out what we can do to support them, basically. And in between some of that, we'll have some Q&A, and I think we'll probably do some breakout rooms towards the end of the meeting. But that sounds good. We'll kick off just by doing a bit of an update on the campaign. And as I say, this is a general election year, and since this campaign's been around, since Labour for a New Democracy has been up and running, it's been between general elections. We've had that kind of policy formation process that runs for many years over between elections. And there's generally a lot of space for debate in the party and for consultation of members and for unions and other groups having their say. In a general election year, that sort of changes quite a bit. Everyone, as I'm sure many of you are feeling, is very focused on the election, very focused on getting Labour candidates elected over the line in our areas and further afield. And the formal processes for consulting members on policy and having big policy debates have kind of now come to an end until that general election. I mean, we've really made the most of those opportunities over the last couple of years. As a movement, we've done, I think, everything that we possibly could do to influence those policies. And there's going to be more that is to be done on policy, but it's just not going to be so much of that kind of grassroots activity. So I'm thinking of things like, obviously going to conference, particularly the 2022 conference, where many of you put motions for us. We all went to Liverpool with trade union support and we won the vote in favour of PR on the conference floor. All of the kind of similar parallel work that happened inside many of the big trade unions to get their policies shifted from a situation where just a couple of percentage of the trade unions were in favour of PR to where overwhelmingly about 2/3 of affiliated unions support electoral reform. And obviously as well last year through the final stage of the National Policy Forum process, working towards that party programme wording that we now have, which says that first past the post is causing distrust and alienation in our politics. All of those things were sort of led by and completely dependent on grassroots members all over the country doing engagement in policy processes, engagement in conferences, things of that nature. As I say, we centrally are very much still sort of working with senior stakeholders in the party and lobbying key decision makers, and not just lobbying but kind of organising amongst stakeholders who are going to have a say in the formation of the manifesto and finalisation of that. You may have seen that there's there's sort of briefing in the press about getting a first version of the manifesto together basically this month. I mean, it's going to have things added to it and tweaked and so on. I think right up to the general election, I suspect. But things are moving very much ahead in terms of manifesto being developed. And behind the scenes, there's going to be a lot of activity to try and get the best results out of that. But when it comes to us all individually as members, sort of taking what actions we can, which collectively push us in the direction of PR, there's really two focuses this year. Firstly, there's continuing the work with parliamentary selections. So, I mean, for a long time now, we've been doing what we can to find out where candidates for parliamentary selection stand, so that when we get a PPC in place, they're as positive as possible. And that, as it has been across the whole Labour movement, there's going to be a real demographic shift, just becoming more and more pro PR over time. I think in the next parliamentary Labour Party, many of your seats will be selecting PPCs. Some of them already have. Some of them will do soon. And in all of those cases, we just need members to be making sure their candidates are in favour of electoral reform and lobbying them to make sure they are. And the other aspect of what we'll be asking members to do is really just trying to go out and make sure that our most pro-PR Labour candidates, the ones who are really going to go in and back for electoral reform once they're actually elected to Parliament, are elected, and in doing so, really giving an incentive for those who are in favour but a bit quiet about it to be louder about it as well. And that's what we're going to be talking about some of today. I think that's probably a fair summary. Alex, I guess I'll hand over to you right away, and then we can do some Q&A before we sort of go into breakouts or anything of that nature.
Thanks, Joe. So yeah, as Joe mentioned, this year we're going to try and organise some canvassing for our most supportive candidates that we know are out publicly supporting proportional representation. And the first thing to say here is we know we have a very large number of Labour candidates and MPs across the country who are supportive of PR. And that is really due in no small part to the brilliant efforts of you all as passionate local members that are making yourselves heard. It really makes a difference. So please do continue to put pressure on your candidates and your MPs because, yeah, we know they want to hear from you. And every chance you get at hustings and during selections processes, if you can make yourselves heard, it will make a difference. And if you can get others to in your area too as well. We know from conversations with candidates that pressure at a local level has a big impact on how they feel about it and whether or not they're willing to speak up about it. All of that said, and knowing the support that we've got among candidates and MPs, we are in an election year, and we know a lot of energy is going to be focused on getting Labour candidates elected. And we're lucky to have so many passionate local members who are really well organised. So we want to work with you this year to put pressure on the future PLP and future MPs to support PR. And as we mentioned back on the December call, one of the best things that we can be doing for the campaign and election year is getting out to canvass for candidates that are supportive of PR. Many of you will be familiar with canvassing already and be doing it individually or with other campaigns. So I'm sure we've got lots of local Labour members here that go canvassing. But just in case anyone's not done it before, it's usually pretty straightforward. It just involves a couple of hours of door knocking locally on a constituency basis to ask people how likely they are to vote for a Labour candidate on a scale of 1 to 10. And as I say, it only lasts a couple of hours. Candidates kind of have report cards and engagement targets to hit, so this is something that they're really keen to get support with. So yeah, if you've done it before, you'll probably know how desperate candidates are to have canvassers and local activists that come and support them on the doorstep. So it's a really great way of us supporting candidates that are already supportive of PR, and it will help us get as many pro-PR MPs elected as possible. As Joe says, it also gives us a bit of muscle as a campaign and election year and shows candidates that they get something for talking about PR. And it's a nice kind of carrot for any candidates that are still sitting on the fence and wondering whether to support a fairer voting system. The kind of quid pro quo being that we might come out and support them on the doorstep if they do so. Yeah, we'll be canvassing for these candidates because they support PR, but the canvass won't be about electoral reform. It will just be canvassing to get them elected, kind of with their Labour election hat on. And yeah, given this is our first time organising canvassing as a campaign, and given so many candidates are supportive, we can't canvass for them all. So we've tried to prioritise by identifying a few that we would really like to support initially, if we know we can get out to them and we know they've been publicly supportive of PR. So this isn't like an exhaustive list, and it will grow. But yeah, we have candidates all over the country, and we have contact with them, but we really need to work with you as local members to go out and canvass and organise canvassing with them. So I'll show you a map as well of where they're located. So hopefully you can all see that okay. So we've got people generally pretty centrally located across a lot of England, and Andrew Ranger in Wrexham, and we've got a few other kind of ones in Yorkshire. So we've got John Grogan up in Keighley, Louise Jones in North East Derbyshire, Jeevan Sander in Loughborough, in the East Midlands, Julia Buckley in Shrewsbury in the West Midlands, Chris Curtis in Milton Keynes North, and Jessica Toll in Bournemouth West. And some of these names will hopefully be familiar to some of you because a lot of them spoke on our events at Party Conference, or have written articles about Labour support for proportional representation. So our hope is that we'll be able to get out and help these guys get elected and that show our support for them as a campaign. And at the moment, we're going to split up into breakout groups where you're going to be able to do some organising together. We'll have a little bit of a Q&A first, just to make sure everyone's comfortable with what we're going to be doing. And because of how large regions are, we've organised each breakout group by the candidate and the constituency, because we know if you're in the southeast, you know, Bournemouth West might be closer to you than Milton Keynes North. So we've organised the breakout rooms by the constituencies, and going to leave it to you as members to decide which breakout group you join, because you'll know which one's best for you and which one's closest. So hopefully that all makes sense. And there'll be an option at the bottom of your screen to select which breakout group you want to join. And you'll have around 20 minutes, but I'll make time for a bit of Q&A first. And the other thing to look out for is in the chat, we'll post a link to this document, which will pop up like this. And this is just where we're going to be making notes. And you're going to have 3 questions for your group for 20 minutes, which are going to be: who's up for canvassing? Who would be willing to be a lead activist? So working with me to agree a date and a time and just being the point of contact on the ground for the day. And what do you need for a successful canvassing session? What might you need to think about, or, you know, what materials could we provide? So hopefully all of that makes sense. I won't open the breakout groups yet because we're going to have a little Q&A just to make sure people have got a bit of a chance to talk in here. But I'll stop sharing my screen so you can see each other again.
And just to add to that, I mean, it is very clear that there's not sort of evenly spread candidates from that list all across the UK, and some people are going to be quite far away from some. I mean, it's not always going to make sense for everyone to be able to go and do canvassing in any case. And in some of your cases, you'll just live a very long way away from the nearest one. What I would say is the reason that we're choosing at the moment just a small number and just the really positive ones, the ones who've, you know, put their head above the parapet and spoken on fringe panels, or they've, you know, done articles in the press and things of that nature. is that we really want to sort of reward that kind of advocacy for PR, and we want to encourage others to do the same. And this really doesn't have to be a sort of an ongoing thing where we're not asking you to sort of become a team member. I mean, you can by all means of a canvassing team that's a long way from where you live. But what we would like to do is just deliver, a few really good action days where we get people out on doorsteps with pro PR PPCs, with a photo holding a sort of Labour for PR banner and being, which we can provide all that stuff, and you know, so we can put on social media and say, look, if you're a pro PR PPC, members are going to come and campaign for you, and we're going to help get you elected. And then we can use that basically to encourage other PPCs to come out equally strongly and to champion PR as well.